Hey, listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available? Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today is August 5th, 2025. And today on our call, we have Ghassan Halazon from Emerge Commerce. Emerge Commerce trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ECOM or ECOM. And it also trades on the OTC under EMCMF. The company is currently trading at 9 cents with about 150 million shares outstanding, or about a $13.5 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, thanks, Trevor. Ghassan, great to have you here. Emerge is a name that we are relatively new to. We don't know the company super well, but that's why we have you here. So why don't we just dive into it? I'll hand it over to you, and you can start your presentation, and we can follow up with some questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul and Trevor. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time here this afternoon. My name is Ghassan Halazon. I am the founder and CEO of Emerge Commerce. I'm going to spend a quick 60 seconds on myself, just a little bit of background, which I think you'll find pertinent. For the last 15 years, all I've been doing is building, buying, selling, and restructuring e-commerce companies for a living. We've been through it all, through different cycles. We've bought different niches. We've had to figure out team situations. We've worked with lenders, investors. We've really been through the whole shebang when it comes to digital brands, and we've mastered it through some tough lessons and some tough mistakes along the way. We feel like we've landed on a platform and a playbook that's now ready and primed for scaling. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into the presentation. So a little bit about Emerge for any newcomers or folks that haven't heard about us before. We are an acquirer and operator of niche e-commerce brands, specifically at this point in the grocery and golf verticals. We're based in Canada, in Toronto. That's where the HQ team is, but we have offices and facilities across Canada and in select markets in the US. Right now, on a pro forma revenue basis, kind of taking into account the acquisition we completed in April, which we'll talk about shortly, our revenue is approximately 27 million. That's on gross merchandise volume of about 40 million, 40. So for those of you who are familiar with e-commerce, if you sell a ticket or a voucher or a product online, that top line number is your GMV, as people who follow Shopify probably have heard that term. But our net revenue on an IFRS basis, without boring you with all the accounting detail related to merchant of record or not, blends into about 27 million. Our approximate gross margin is 40%. We are an adjusted EBITDA positive company, and increasingly so, I might add. You'll get a bit more color here shortly. We owned about 4 brands across the 2 verticals, being grocery and golf. And as I said, Canada and US are our primary markets. So a quick snippet of the preliminary highlights in Q2 that probably got Paul and Trevor to reach out. Our revenue grew 79% year over year, from 4.6 million last year to about 8.3 million this year in Q2. Now that is including our acquisition of Tee 2 Green, so it's not an apples to apples view. Our actual organic revenue growth is in the double digit range. We don't officially report it, but you can assume it is in somewhere in between that and our organic levels over the prior quarters. Our adjusted EBITDA, we saw a swing of plus 1 million. So effectively, we were around just under break even. We were in the million range for Q2. 900K to a million is the range we gave. And our cash actually increased year over year and quarter over quarter, despite the fact that we used at 1.1 million to execute and close on the Tee 2 Green transaction in April. In other words, we generated close to 1.7 or 1.8 million in cash flow in Q2. Notably, Q2 we also shared a preliminary view on T2Green, which we call T2G for short. That was a plus 34% year-over-year organic growth. We'll talk about the levers that we pulled early on, leveraging our golf portfolio and our data and advertising playbook to drive that sort of growth to what was a traditionally flat business. Little bit about our brands, starting with True Local, our flagship local meat and seafood subscription business. It's the market leader in Canada. We are, for those of you who know Butcher Box in the US, we are the unequivocal Butcher Box of Canada, if you will. We focus on direct-to-consumer subscription model. We deliver straight from local farmers to these customers across Canada. We're the only player in D2C that ships nationwide. We have multiple competitors, smaller ones, obviously, in Ontario, BC, Alberta, etc. But again, we are the #1 player by scale, by revenue, by profit, and by geography overall. True Local is Emerge's largest brand. It contributes about 55 to 60% of our overall revenue. It comes with, and to be clear, it's a subscription model. So we have reoccurring membership where people pay, and depending on the type of box, but an average of $230 a month to receive in a box with dry ice their grass-fed beef, their organic chicken, their seafood straight to their door. And the idea here is you're buying and supporting local and you're eating healthy food. So it's healthy living meets supporting local meets convenience straight to your door. I've been in e-commerce for a very long time, as I said, over 15 years. I've looked at a lot of different models in consumer e-commerce. Most of them are challenged. Most of them have churn problems. Not to name names here in Canada, but there are other meal kit type companies out there and so forth that are troubled because people quit those boxes after 2, 3, 4 times. Not the case with True Local, which we view as a staple type business. You're buying your meats. We're not giving you recipes. We're not involved in the R&D. We're simply delivering to you like clockwork every single month. Your beef, your chicken, your seafood, and then you decide what you're doing with it. So what the result is very attractive CLTVs to CACs. The customer lifetime value approaches $2,000, but it only costs us $124. For anyone in the audience that has watched us through the years, you'll notice that CAC has come down. It used to be between $170 to $200. What's happened in a year like this is Canadians have rallied around local offerings, right? Every other site has the support local, we're Canadian banner, and I would jump on that bandwagon too if I were a lot of other brands. But the truth is, there is no bigger local game in town than True Local. It's in our name. And it's exactly what we've done. We've compromised other growth opportunities through the years to remain true to the mission of local. For example, we don't carry any Wagyu from Australia, which I personally like, by the way. But we've really, really zoned in and mastered the art of being one of the faces of Canadian local movement that we believe, by the way, for what it's worth, is here to stay. It is a sentiment shift. It is not a pandemic, oh, we're locked down, we got to buy from this stuff, like it was a while back. This is something where Canadians feel strongly they don't like their ex-spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend. You pick your flavor. So we think this is a big tailwind for this model. And look no further than down south with Butcher Box, as I mentioned. They are the poster child, and I should say this of you guys are called small cap discoveries. They are the poster child of hidden gem D2C, direct to consumer e-commerce subscription. Why? Because they've scaled 0 to 500 million with not a single dollar raised. And what that tells me is 2 things. Phenomenal operator, credit to them. But guess what? As Warren Buffett always says, and others say this too, like if it were to be a crappy model, I don't care how great and brilliant you are, it's really difficult to get to 100 million, let alone 500 million. This is a sticky model. The unit economics work here, and we are the by far market leader in Canada, and yet we're still, way, way smaller than, say, a butcher box, or even 10% of a butcher box, which would be a 3 or 4x from where we are here, right? So very excited about what this model brings. And I am personally in charge of leading it, growing it. It's a double-digit growth business. It's profitable. We're very excited. I've talked a little bit about these trends, so I'll keep it moving. But this is our corporate deck available at Emerge Brands. So we don't need to talk a little bit, but we've seen a lot of good tailwinds in this model. Next up, the golf vertical. Tee to Green is our most recent business. It is a traditionally boring cash flow business. It's been around for 38 years, sells golf apparel and equipment. And interestingly, we found out about Tee to Green and we got to know them very well through Just Golf Stuff, our golf apparel and equipment marketplace. Interesting story on Just Golf Stuff. It was a little side business that did 500K a year in 2019 when we acquired it. Today, we've 10x that business to 5 million top line. Now, that's still a small business. However, I love that we were able to do this without any new additional hires. We were able to leverage our know-how in golf, our team, and our customer database. And so a lot of what we did with Just Golf Stuff on the back of Underpar, which I'll get to in a second, we are applying to Tee to Green now, and the results are phenomenal in the early going. So on to Underpar. It is really what I would call our flagship golf brand. If any of you are golfers, you've probably heard of Underpar in Ontario and in Southern California, our two largest markets. This is a business that quite frankly struggled during the pandemic. You know, a lot of e-commerce flew, but this one had the opposite issue, or opposite situation, in that everyone and their mother was starting to play golf, that the golf courses didn't need us to fill up any empty slots. You couldn't find a tee time for a couple of years there. But this is a recessionary model. It actually was invented during the Great Recession of 2008-9, etc. And essentially, the more golf courses are hurting, or people are traveling, or there's a recession in the economy, the more they rely on Underpar to fill up those tee times, right? So an average golf course prior to all the pandemic craze was sitting at about 40% utilization, right? And golf was a declining sport for many of you probably know this. And then the resurgence came back, and now we're kind of somewhere in the middle. And so what we're seeing with Underpar is very interesting. After multiple years during the pandemic of it getting hit badly, the supply side is coming back to the marketplace, and the customers are hurting, so they're looking for discounts. So it's a double whammy that's resulting in double-digit growth here as well. Okay, so very cool tailwinds on both sides of the food, the support local, and then the discount-centric stuff on the golf side. Okay, a little bit more about Tee to Green. Last year, it generated north of 6 million in revenue, about 1 million in EBITDA, and net income of 700K on audit without formal audits. We purchased it for about 2.2 times EBITDA, which was a phenomenal deal, partly circumstantial. The owner had been there for decades and wanted a custodian for the business, had personal life issues and looking to move to Florida, etc., etc. And it landed perfectly on our lap, knowing that we had a relationship, we had a management contract where we managed aspects of their business, and they were a vendor on Just Golf Stuff, which means that, you know, we were very familiar with one another and we got along philosophically, and he wanted someone who could take care of the brand and gave it a digital edge, which they were lacking. As you can see, very flexible, disciplined terms here, 5-year payment plan. And you know, again, the multiple was excellent. And then, you know, the icing on the cake is we were able to take on 2.4 million in inventory, which we own now on day one, but we only owe it over 8 years. So it gives us an incredible cash flow advantage. In terms of the synergies, they're kind of what you'd expect. We are digital first. We have data capabilities. We have, you know, Meta and Google ad capabilities. We have affiliates. We have a huge database. We have great brands. Rather, Tee to Green has great brands that they're affiliated with that we're not, and vice versa. And there's some really nice savings once you add additional scale into the platform. So let's put the theory to the test, as some of you may have followed or have heard. It's been a tremendous 90 days. We're now another 30 days in, and obviously we haven't shared as much, but let's call it a home run start under Emerge. The organic growth, which is something we've paid very close attention to, I'll be very honest with you guys. We had modeled in flat to 5% growth for a boring cash flow business. We were happy with that. What happened was we ended up figuring out that no ads online switched to some ads online with some good targeting capabilities that we've amassed is magic, is pure magic. And it's suddenly, we've been sending people to these roadshows. Think of them as pop-up stores where there's all this equipment. I know some of you, if you're golfers, you've been to these sorts of things. And this is sort of a very old school experience. When I looked at some of these roadshows, I said, shouldn't there be some music or some AC? And it's kind of like it's in the middle of nowhere where there's no golf town in sight, right? No big competitors, no big chains. We're going to Sarnia on this weekend, and we're packing up all this equipment. And so our HQ advertising team comes along, does some of these little catchy TikTok style ads that some of your kids are addicted to, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but we end up packing these stores one after the other. We're comparing them year over year, and every single one of them is up 30, 35, 40% year over year for an old school business. And what that ends up meaning after a quarter of doing this every day, every week, is that we've recouped our purchase price of 1.1 million in less than 90 days. If you look at some of the wording we use in our PR, and in our announcements, we say that we've more than recouped, or maybe we used comfortably exceeded the purchase price. So obviously you'll get a flavor of where cash is and so forth. But let's just say it was really, really something in terms of what we've delivered here in the early going. And credit to the golf team, by the way. We have an amazing head of golf and we have an awesome marketing team. So a lot of this credit belongs to them. All right. So a little bit of road mapping to give you a sense of what's to come. But first, you've got to get a sense and an appreciation of where, these gray hairs have come from. So ECOM 1.0 on the very left is really what we started off with. So if you came to us a while back, we were looking to do, for lack of a better analogy, and I know this is borderline insulting, we wanted to be the Constellation software of e-commerce brands. We wanted a disparate, diversified portfolio of niche e-commerce brands. And that theory failed over time, not just with us, but for a lot of different roll-ups in e-commerce. There was no synergy. And unlike in software at the time, you needed a real brand. You needed to build communities. Consumers were fickle. They're not like software where you can raise prices and sit back and the government may not even wake up and may not even figure that you've raised prices. So this is a very hands-on business. And so the thesis failed, but it also failed because of the timing. We bought a bunch of businesses that had nothing to do with each other at the peak of the pandemic when e-commerce was the hottest thing on earth. And we did a lot of that with debt. And that debt was variable rate, of course. So you get what happens there. EBITDA and revenue come back down to earth after the pandemic. Debt skyrockets in terms of interest servicing. And it was a perfect storm. So we ushered in, the era of focus. We had no choice, really. We had to clean up the balance sheet. We had to get rid of most of the debt. We had to reignite growth after having come down from those artificial highs. And, not that we could control it, but we were, starting to see an improving macro. And that's exactly what we did through 2024 and earlier in 23, we brought down the debt by almost 80%, the net debt. Net debt was almost 32 million at some point. I think we're now just under 5 million, almost 4.5 million in net debt. And we've had 5 consecutive quarters of revenue growth, excluding our latest one, which we haven't officially started reporting on. And so we've really, really streamlined the business, given that we're no longer diversified, we're not buying all these things that have nothing to do with each other. That allowed us to tighten HQ and to allow us to parachute into our chosen verticals of grocery and golf, which is our original DNA, by the way. Those were the key verticals we were in when, around the time and before we went public. And so we've been able to manage and exert real change and discipline, and you're starting to see that in those results. And then ushering in ECOM 3.0, which is the era of strategic growth. As you can see, with the acquisition of Tita Green, we embarked on this new wave of, okay, you know what? Let's stick to what we do best. Let's stick to where we have market-leading brands and portfolios in grocery and golf, right? Let's only do stuff that we can do 1 + 1 = 3, i.e., real synergy. And let's prioritize cash flow generation above all else. Let that be the cornerstone of all of our decision making. And of course, tied to all of that, what happens when profits grow as they are and cash grows and so forth. Now we are in a position and we are zoning in on the ability to refi our existing debt facility. It's a $5.85 million senior facility, which used to be 25, by the way. We are starting to look at what the refi could look like. How much can we save in interest? We believe there are substantial savings because our profitability and our debt to EBITDA profile has completely transformed. So we're excited about that as another catalyst. So tuck-ins and debt refi, those are the two big catalysts in my mind for this next wave. Of course, in addition to, at all times, first and foremost priority is continued improvement in organic growth and operations. So what are the types of tuck-ins that we're looking to do? We love the Tita Green model. We love, what we call old school cash flow businesses that we can apply technology to. But as you can expect, we're looking for stuff that isn't declining, that isn't messy, that isn't debt ridden, right? And we're looking for like that sweet spot of 750K to 2 million EBITDA. Right now, that suits with the level we're at. Maybe over time we'll grow that, but that's a perfect zone. I would say 1 million is the sweet spot. And this is illustrative. Every deal is its own deal. We'd love more Tita Green style deals with discipline, with multi-year payouts, and with a safety net for us. Okay, so this is sort of the opportunity in a nutshell of where we're going. You got True Local on the one end, the face of Canadian local grocery. We want to build around it. We got multiple competitors. We got adjacent pet food style. Think of them as True Local for pets type businesses that we're looking at. You got logistics vendors, right? Dry ice companies, that sort of thing. Cash flow that we can leverage for our own operations and for how we build and improve margin and defensibility, but also comes with a B2B client base. Corporate gifting. So actually, we have a $50 billion corporate gifting client that's been recurring with us and this is being the third year. They have about 2,000 employees in Canada. They have 25,000 in the US. They got 2,000 in Canada. And every year now, they've been gifting their employees, instead of, enough with the chocolates and the wine, they're gifting them local meat and seafood, kind of like Omaha steaks, if you will. And so the idea for us is to be, given Canada is a smaller population, let's be the butcher box of Canada, but we can also be the Omaha steaks of Canada, just as an example. By the way, both of those businesses are 500 million each. And so we think that, the opportunity to be the face of Canadian food tech, starting with local, is wide open. It wasn't a little while ago. There were a couple of big names, that some public and so forth, and some not. But we really think that with this brand and this community, and I encourage you to go out and check these, what's written about True Local. There's diehard fans out here. We raise prices, and I ask customer service explicitly, put a spreadsheet together of every single comment and complaint. And you know what I get? I get thank yous. Thank you for doing what you do to move the local scene forward. We're more than fine with the price increases. We're open to even more price increases. These are the types of comments we get. This is not your average consumer brand. On the other side, golf, as you can see, we got a 3-brand starting point with 400,000 subs. So we really see $200 million opportunities in each of these verticals, primarily in Canada with some US. By the way, Underpar is 50% US. So we do have some exposure there. not so much on the equipment side, so we don't really have any tariff risk there either. I'll keep progressing here. Again, this slide is available on Emerge Brands, but these are the types of synergies that you can expect when you consolidate with purpose rather than just decentralized. You got, shared payment processing, you shared analytics, the HQ team is now shared. Everything is lined up. And then cross-selling and data, just like we proved with Tita Green. We grew that thing 34% in its first quarter, traditionally a flat business. So a lot of capabilities, a lot of improvements. You've heard a little bit about me. Dasha Enenko is our CFO. She comes from M&P. Morris Finn, he's not on here. He is a gem. He runs our golf business. I would have loved for him to present. He asked me, he said, I have the meeting I've been waiting for for 4 years, today, right this moment. And I said, we've got to, investors should be happy to hear this, but we would prioritize the business over investors 10 times over. We need the business to make sense for the investor side to make sense. That is what got us here in terms of completing this turnaround, and hopefully things like this starting to pop up, invites to speak to folks. The business is where we are at. We are adamant that we got to keep prioritizing the key stuff. So we are no nonsense, and we've been fully focused on these results. On the board, we have Drew Green, who's the CEO of Indochino, the suit company, the custom suit company, who some of you might know. Ian McKinnon, who notably was on the board of Constellation Software for 16 years. He was also on the board of Sylogist, if you guys know that name. So he heads up comp and governance. He is a phenomenal mentor to myself, helps me think through capital allocation, incentives with the team, really just sort of amazing mentor. John Kim, who some of you might know from Well Health Technologies. He's on the board and was with Hamid during the TO Network days. He heads up the audit committee. I don't really comment too much on share price. It's great to see the volume, I will say. We moved north of 10 million in volume in July, which was a breakout month. By the way, that's about 10x what we saw prior July. It's great to see that interest start to come, because quarter after quarter after quarter for the last couple of years, we've just been continuously delivering improved results across the spectrum. But I think folks really liked what we just did here with recouping our investment, growing our cash flow, growing our revenue for, accelerating, frankly, the double-digit growth. This is the cap table, fairly straightforward. I will just share too that we got a number of supportive investors exercise their expiring warrants a few weeks ago at 10 cents. In support, I early exercised part of my options, about $10,000 worth at 11 cents in support. So we raised another 280K from some long-term investors. And then for everyone else, which obviously it's fair game, the warrants were out of the money. We were at 8 cents at the time or something. So we've kind of expired about 12 million something warrants, which was sort of an overhang at 10 cents previously. That's completely wiped out. And then the capitals come in on top of the already strong cash position of 3.5 million at the time. So obviously that means, or you can infer at least, that if operations were still or are still going in the same direction, we've just added close to another 300K in cash. And then I will say one last observation that hopefully means something to someone out there. You will not find, and I don't know if this is good or bad, you will not find a single instance, and I mean a single instance or a single share of any director that's active that's ever sold a share of ECOM, and we went all the way up to $1.40. So that's why I say I don't know if that's good or bad. But hey, listen, like, we are very, very long term about this. I've only bought in the market. I just did 10K here. I've been chipping away every chance I get, probably a couple of 100K worth of public investment that I've made in Emerge, which is a meaningful sum for myself. And so I just wanted to let you guys know we're looking at this with a very long term lens. We did not clean this business up over the last few years and go through all that trouble if we did not intend to really operate with discipline and bring this back up. Obviously, we can't control the markets, as my lawyers would say, but we are intent on continuing with execution rigor. I will breeze through this. You already know what our goals are as terms of growth and activating M&A and enhancing cash flow. So I'll leave you with this final slide. And it reads itself well, but obviously we view ourselves as first and foremost like a solid operator at this point. We've taken us a while to get to this point of cleaning up reigniting the growth, improving the profit, improving the cash flow. We're tariff-proof, recession-proof, which is something that I think very few Canadian names can say. We have real brand at the heart of our success here lately. The recent success in our community is testament of all of that. We've significantly improved leverage. We've reduced our overall debt by 80%, our senior debt by 77%, and our net debt to EBITDA is in way better shape than it once was. We got a team that's cleaned things up, that's 10x one of the current businesses we're on. I'm running True Local and we're growing it again. T2 Green is off to an amazing start. Under Par is a recession style business that we think is going to thrive. We have a tremendous pipeline. We want to be opportunistic, as we have been with T2 Green. I'll be very, very honest. I don't think the T2 Green terms are something we can keep replicating exactly as is. Those were killer terms, but we sure as hell look to be as close as possible to that type of spectacular structuring and ultimately early results. And finally, as I've mentioned a few slides ago, we see two $100 million opportunities. I don't know what that means for market cap or not. If we can execute, get ourselves to a position, we have two market-leading verticals, but that is absolutely the goal. And we believe Emerge was once a 120 million GMV company. So we've done the 100 million plus. We did it at the wrong time with the wrong cycle and with too much debt. And so we're looking to do that in a disciplined way under the 3.0 model. And that is it for now. And I will open it up for questions.
Perfect. Ghassan, thank you for that. A reminder, everybody listening, of course, if you've got a question, please use the chat function and I'll make sure a question gets asked. Golf is a fair weather sport. How much seasonality in revenues are there on that side of the business? And quite frankly, even, I guess, the business in general.
Yes, good question. So it's a little nuanced, so I'll try to keep it compact. You got golf experiences, and then you got that by geography. Let's start there. So golf experiences in Canada, obviously golf season is excellent. Q2 is a standout. So by the way, that includes T2 Green being its biggest quarter. But you'll also see Q3 is also quite good. Q1 is seasonal in Canada. And same thing for T2 Green. But Q1 is not seasonal in the US, where California, the weather's nice, etc. So there's a little bit of that cross balancing. Q4, when it's snowy and cold as hell here in Canada, it's actually a positive because golf courses end up selling their pre-sale packages, and that's the time for golf courses. If any of you run them or know them, they're either catching up because they're behind plan and they need cash flow, or they have new exciting projects. So they're collecting all this cash at the end of the year and they're giving crazy pre-sale discounts. So between right now, we got Q2 is rock solid, Q4 is rock solid seasonality wise for golf overall. I'll generalize, and then Q3 is quite good, and then Q1 is a little lighter. Okay, the flip side of it is True Local. True Local's Q1 in reverse is actually really solid, and the reason being, it's the time for the new let's go, let's get healthy, let's figure out the gym thing. So Jan and Feb are huge. This year we actually had a further tailwind with the buy local, the support local. So we came out with a campaign called True Local Retaliates. We came out with a full press release. I got a slap on the wrist from Ciro. They're like, this is too promotional. I'm like, no, you're wrong. We got to stand up for Canada. And anyway, so we got away with it, but we actually call it like True Local Retaliates. We did 25% off instead of the 25% tariffs for all customers that month. And obviously that was phenomenal. So I would say, and then sorry, just True Local Q4 corporate gifting is huge. Q2 is okay. Barbecue season, so. Q3 is kind of okay, but right now we're just continuing to see those tailwinds. So that's a very nuanced way to say, like, I think we're pretty reasonable on the seasonality front and pretty balanced.
It sort of balances out. That's good. The M&A pipeline that you have, how do you generate opportunities? Like, are they coming to you? Or are you going out in some form or fashion looking for deals? How do you do it?
A while back, we had a mini M&A division when we were kind of going after these opportunities in an organized way. Look, Paul, I've been in this space for 15 years. And I've been in these verticals, some for 5, some for 7, and so forth. So we kind of know, like any operator should and would, we kind of know the top 7 to 12 people personally at this point in every aspect of what we're doing. And because we're not going broader, like I'm not going after whatever, like survival gear in Atlanta, like this is now who's in the golf space. We know practically most. Occasionally we'll get a bit of outreach. And we know the brokers, of course. But I will say, like Tee to Green as an example, that was a vendor of ours. We've known them for years. Under Par we knew because we used to own a business called WagJag, and we used to do a little bit of golf, and we knew Under Par was number one in golf in Ontario. So it's a bit of relationship, a bit of brokers, and a bit of word of mouth.
Perfect. And so you've done a number of deals so far. What's the perfect set of terms? Like, what would you prefer to see? Cash, debt, combination, earn out? There's so many different ways to put one of these deals together. What's the preferred way to go?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the beautiful setup here with Tee to Green was we used our own cash, no debt. And we're not adverse to a little bit of debt, but we're certainly not going to make the mistakes we did before where we were doing 50-50 debt, 50 equity from our end. Just because like, you need a bit of buffer, especially in this crazy world. So, in an ideal world, what we did with Tee to Green was we paid 1 times EBITDA upfront, which is ridiculous, right? I don't think that's going to be an easy thing to just, do often. But, let's call it 1 to 2 times upfront, right? And, then anything that's deferred payment, we tend to stretch out. So we did 5 years here, which is excellent. Historically, we've done 2 to 3 years, to give you an idea. So we push this out, for extra years just to minimize the upfront cash in these earlier years. And then we did a sliver of equity. We did it at the time. We were at 4.5 cents. We still got the seller to accept 6.5 cents, which was a premium to market, but just in because they understood that we were bringing a lot of exciting things to the table. And so that was like a small percent. That was like less than 10% of the total amount, I believe. So I think the mix there makes sense. So we're trying not to go above 50% for the upfront. And generally, I would say just from a financing perspective, just to reiterate, we're really looking to be very prudent and careful with debt. We're not looking to increase our leverage right now. If anything, the debt to EBITDA has to, at the very least, be where it is, but ideally come down.
Mhm. Um, what sort of keeps you up at night right now with the business?
That's a good question. Um, I feel like your audience, like, I think you guys got it easy. Like, you're coming at me in the best week, month, year that I've seen in e-commerce for like a decade, right? I mean it. Like I just came back from a vacation and I was like, I've never been this, like no one's bothered me this vacation. No, a couple of team members didn't even answer my call. Like things are just flowing and it's weird, right? Because we were doing everything under the sun a while back and no matter what we did, everything was declining and it didn't matter which portfolio, which manager, which anything we touched, we felt like complete idiots. And now it's like the reverse. And I literally tell the team, we're not like 10 times smarter now that everything's like 10x, right? Like we're not, right? Like we are still putting in the hustle. We have great brands. We're more focused. The macro's on our side and things are flowing. What keeps me up at night? I don't know, like if ButcherBox, which is not in Canada, as an example, and they are very bootstrapped. But if they one day woke up and said, we need to leave, the 50 states in the US and conquer Canada and come in and spray 50 million and like grow, like the CAC needs to like jump up and blah, 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 right? Like maybe. Will they care about Canada? Probably not. Would they probably want to buy True Local first? Yeah, probably, right? Right? If they want to come in and they care so much about Canada, who do you think Canadians are going to side with? The company that's called True Local with the Canadian flag on it or ButcherBox? So I feel like, but there's a bit of that, like we are in hidden gem territory. Like I consider Canada hidden gem territory in e-commerce. Like no one cares as much, except we're building this couple of $100 million worth of value, and I think people will care eventually. But that's one thing. Tariffs. We had a bit of equipment. We had to figure out the math on all of that. Like it's Canada specific. For us, we're fortunate. We have small exposure to the US, very small. We were going to grow it. We're not going to grow it anymore. So some of that macro stuff, we watch out for as well.
Mhm. Now, true local Canadian, but Canada's a big place. Like when you say local, how local is the product that you're selling there?
Super damn local.
Mhm.
It's every province for itself kind of thing. If you order
Mhm.
meat and seafood, I guess seafood's the one that, obviously you got to get from different
Mhm.
places locally. But like,
Sure.
the meat and the chicken are 100, the beef and the chicken are 100% province based. Ontario,
Yeah.
Ontario, you get it from BC for BC, Alberta, Alberta. So that means we have dozens of farmers set up by province, which is why no one else has gone through the trouble of being national and setting up the way we have. But overall, we're only Canada only across the board. So our
Mhm.
primary focus is super local, or what we call hyper local, let's say, and then local as in Canadian. That's the next line of defense.
Mhm. Perfect. Okay, listen, a couple questions have come in, so why don't we tackle these questions? Hassan says, in True Local, when someone subscribes, usually how much time do they stick around? What's the life of a typical customer?
Yeah. So let's do some math because this was on one of the slides.
Mhm.
And I'll try to keep it relatively simple. Okay, so let's say the CLTV that we mentioned was $2,000. Let's round up slightly. I think it's 190,
Mhm.
1,960 or whatever. The average order value of the box is 230,
Mhm.
right? So that means that infers 8.5 to 9 boxes if they do it monthly. Now, some people pause it while they're away. Some people,
Mhm.
end up doing it every 6 weeks. There's various reasons. But overall, through our own math, folks are sticking around for anywhere between a year to 18 months on average. Of course, you have your VIPs that stick around way longer, call it 20% of the audience.
Mhm.
You got everyone else sticking around somewhere in the middle, like a bell curve, right? So
Mhm.
12 to
Sure.
18 months. And then you got the folks that leave, ranging from 1 box in all the way to 8 boxes, right? And those are like also a small amount on the other side. So what the result is, and this is the holy grail in e-commerce. I'm sure many of you understand this. The result is if it costs us 124 bucks and the average order value of a box is 230 bucks. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I'll mention it now. Our gross margin is about 30%. So 230 bucks times 30% is rather times 30% is about 70 bucks. Therefore, on two purchases, we're in the money.
Mhm.
On two purchases, we're in the money. But the average is hanging around for 9 purchases and doing it over 12 to 18 months. And by the way, AOV is going up. So the 230 is going, 230 used to be 220, 218, I think 204 when we bought it.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's sort of a long-winded way of saying like we're in the money.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, Paolo, who I know is a golfer, he asked, where do they inventory for Tee to Green? Where do
Mm.
they inventory for Tee to Green? Maybe you understand that question better than I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Where does it come from, I guess? Just to be clear, like we have a small private label business.
Mhm.
That's not the main play here. It's called Northern Spirit, which I love
Mhm.
as a name. It fits well with the
Mhm.
Canadian play. But no, the majority of our business is working with the Callaways, the Adidases, the TaylorMades, the brands that all of you know and love. We work with them and their relationships, and whether it's clearance, whether it's last year's models, whether there's supply sitting in Canada that could go to the US, but they kind of want to offload it to someone. These are the types of things that we get our hands on. And so, we got about 2.4 million in inventory of this stuff, golf balls, apparel, equipment. Um, and we pay it over 8 years, which is a phenomenal deal for us, and something we probably can't replicate. Not 8 years. I don't think I can do that again. But it's with working with brands and working with reps who have access to this stuff. And again, think of it as a 38-year work in progress of relationships, very intertwined. They come to us first. They give us first dibs on stuff, that sort of model. And then they go and do all these roadshows and pop-ups. Uh, and so that's how we get these brands through the
Mhm.
relationships, which is a big add-on for us because now we can. And one of the things we didn't discuss is the synergies they bring to us, which is bringing these relationships to the Just Golf Stuff marketplace. That is our
Mhm.
marketplace for all sorts of brands and businesses.
Mhm.
Which T to Green was one vendor, by the way.
Gotcha. Paulo also asks, have you looked at acquiring Golf Avenue? affiliations with Golf Town and Golf Canada?
They may or may not be on the pipeline list, but no,
Uh,
we're not actively speaking to them right this moment. We're aware of them, and we're fans of what they've built. I understand that they've built some interesting features with the trading and so forth, and I believe they're a profitable business as far as I know. But
mhm,
we're not. Certainly, we're going to be looking at everyone in golf and are.
mhm. Gotcha. Then he goes on to say, Tee to Green feels like there's no inventory. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I know why. You, assuming you're looking at the website,
Mhm,
um, Tee to Green website is 5% of revenue of that 6 million, maybe less. And so their primary model is offline. And so what they do is they have 60 pop-up stores. They call them roadshows. And they'll go rent, as I said, a conference room in a hotel or a warehouse or that sort of thing. That's 60 different locations that make up a very decent portion of revenue. We don't break it out, but like it's a big chunk, and that happens from April to September is the majority of it. And then you have two retail stores in Aurelia and Barrie, actual physical retail stores.
mhm,
Also a little old school style, like have their clientele. Um, and so those two make up the vast majority of the revenue combined, those two segments. And then you have a bit of B2, what do you call them? Like wholesale style transactions sometimes where we'll like offload some old inventory for like a very small profit. And then that online piece is really small. So one of the synergies, and I breezed through this in the interest of time, one of the synergies is that we know online, we are going to reinvent it. They have a mailing list that they're not monetizing. So there's a lot of that coming up as well.
mhm. Gotcha. Okay, question from Chris says, which vertical are you prioritizing and why? Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
so once upon a time we had five verticals, 120 million GMV, but it didn't count for much if the EBITDA generated from all of those businesses was less than the debt servicing expense. So we
Mhm,
had to make some tough choices, and the choice was we're gonna we're gonna zone in on grocery and golf, our original DNA in the space, where we personally had success running things like this. And so we had a head of golf, who I mentioned, I think very highly of. And then we parachuted into True Local. By we, I mean I and the HQ team. And so we don't really need to prioritize one or the other at this point. We have two great visions. We have leadership. Think of them as two companies. They
mhm,
literally, other than shared HQ resources and some ads and support, like these businesses have their leaderships. I think over time there'll probably be a bigger food tech team just so I can spend more time at HQ and Holdco and investor side, which I am, by the way. This is
mhm,
now that we got a story to tell, I'm out here doing these things, right? And so I think that as I outlined earlier, I think there's $200 million opportunities in each of these verticals, primarily in Canada with some US exposure. Obviously, a much bigger level beyond that once you get to the US, which is something we would look at down the line.
mhm. Um, your organic growth, like what do you think sets you apart from your competitors? What are you guys doing right that they might not be doing right?
On the True Local side, we have the best brand in the business. We're the largest group to do it. I think we have easily the best customer experience, and we really double down on that stuff. We have some exclusive relationships with certain farmers, and while we don't have every exclusive relationship, farmers have tend to give us better deals because of our scale, and because of our brand, and because of our nationwide servicing, which a lot of the other guys are regional, like small ones in Ottawa
Mhm,
or and by the way, those are great tuck-in opportunities, those types. But no one has the presence, the customer service, the brand, so I think we're a clear-cut winner there, and we are growing very nicely after having come down from those artificial highs. Um, on the golf side, I think Underpar has been a great brand. I think it has a very positive reputation. I think folks would say during the pandemic there just weren't as many good courses on there, which is absolutely true. And
mhm,
now a lot of those courses are returning, and we are seeing that double-digit growth from there. Just golf stuff's like that scrappy little brother punching at Golf Town, we were 500K. We 10x that business. We did it ourselves. We did it with Shopify. We're online first. We're not an old school retailer jumping into the online game. Go check out justgolfstuff.ca and .com. We think we've done it really nicely from the ground up, like textile play. And Tee 2 Green, it's just like a 30-something-year-old business with relationships that are deep, that are intertwined. And now we're modernizing it with all our know-how and our advertising and our lists. The other thing I'll say real quick is all this talk about AI disrupting, all sorts of businesses. But interestingly, you can copy a True Local or an Underpar site probably within a day or even within hours, prompting and setting up a site. But what you can't copy is you can't come up with 400,000 golfers in an email list overnight. You can't come up with 1,000 golf courses that know you well, that trust you, that give you their times and so forth. So for all the shit that e-commerce gets in terms of being low margin and a relatively difficult category, the one thing we have over a lot of these, even software companies and whatnot, is we got brand first. If you have your brand down and you have a community, now the AI is a supercharge. Now I can plug in bots for my customer service. I can improve farmer visibility and data analytics. Amazing. But I got brand first. I got trust and community first. And so that's why I think we're in actually a really prime position to grow exponentially.
Fantastic. Okay, so Chris also asks, if food products are relatively local to customers, how do you ensure quality control between suppliers? What challenges do you have in maintaining suppliers and quality standards?
Is a very good question. And again, it was a choice we made to stay true to local and to stay true to, antibiotic free and, the whole shebang. We want to live it at the expense of potentially more growth from different areas that we decided not to enter. So I think, we do have a quality assurance and quality control team that tests this stuff. We offer it's a tight team, like the core team. We offer them boxes every month, but only in return of whether they fill out their surveys, and they rate stuff and they rank stuff, and then we end up doing a committee around how did this go and what about the chicken breast? Did you like this? Did you like that? Did you know which one we sent you, etc., etc. So we're pretty deep on that sort of thing. And then I will also say, like a couple of years ago when I parachuted in, what did I know, right, about meat and all of that? So someone pitched me on like private label stuff, and we did some meat, like the True Local branded stuff. And I think some people like in the middle somewhere cut corners and like really screwed up the quality of the meat. My wife was like, no, I'm going back to Whole Foods, and it was really bad. And we cut it very, very quickly, and margin went down. Like our margin went up to like 33% instead of 30 or whatever. And we really never did that again. Like we are religious about that, and we by now know some of the top groups and farms and suppliers. We have great relationships, and we demand excellence. We demand excellence, and the team knows full well that quality control, especially when it comes to food, is absolutely, at the heart of, a long-term experience.
That makes sense. Okay, so Sean asks, how has churn changed over the past 12 to 18 months, and what are your most successful levers for retention?
Sean, I could bullshit you, but I won't. I think churn is fairly consistent. Like I think what we're finding though is, sorry, fairly consistent given like all the support local. Like we really haven't seen like just because of the support local, people are sticking longer. Like at least like we haven't dived as deep on that. But what we have seen is more subscribers through the door at a cheaper cost, right? So our CPAs have come down. And as I say, you buy a customer for 124, they go on and buy 2,000 at a 30% margin, that's 600 or 500. You're in the money after two boxes on the $70 gross margin. So we love that. And if anything, we're considering accelerating marketing to drive more of that. But honestly, it's a balance between that and profitability today. I think what I said earlier, which is cash flow as a priority. Like we're really focused. We got the organic, we got the headline revenue growth. We're going 79%. Like all of that looks nice, and the organic's solid, and the EBITDA is solid. But like really, at the end of the day, the more profitability we build in here and focus on, the more we can do things like a debt refi and save 4 percentage points on interest very soon, right? Like, I mean, that's a goal. And you know, the more that happens, the more we have access to an accordion that we can couple with our own cash to do other acquisitions, right? So the flywheel, we're really focused on the cash flow piece. Churn, you know, in that sort of 12 to 18 month zone is on the better end of the spectrum, just to be clear. In consumer e-commerce, a lot of folks, meal kits, disaster. Meal
Mhm.
kits, disaster. 3, 4 times and they're out. Why?
Mhm.
R&D, and you gotta get this. Oh, you added the kale salad, but the kale is shit, right? So like there's all sorts of reasons why very like R&D heavy type models have high churn. And plus also it's just again, we have a bit of, and this is a little ironic, but and I think we landed on this. I won't claim that it was a strategy, but the true local audience, which none of you asked me, the demo isn't who you think it is. It is a cool brand, but I was actually even like as we continued to survey, a lot of the people doing this program aren't like the downtown folks. For one thing, they don't have enough
Mhm.
fridge space, right? And, you know, and they want the quick prepared meals and all of that. They
Yeah.
don't have time, but it's really working with suburban moms, with families. So
Mhm.
it's like tilted 60% plus female, but it's also
Yeah.
families, minimum of two, obviously average of three is probably what we're seeing. And so that's kind of on the older side, let's say relative.
Mhm.
I'm not insulting anyone. I'm just saying
Mhm.
like it's not kids, it's not Gen Zs, it's just sort of
Yeah.
older. And then the golf, as you'd expect, is also tilted, you know, older. So the joke over here at Emerge HQ is that we might as well rename ourselves to Boomer Commerce. You know, you're getting these a bit older demos. They have more money. They quit less. They refund
Yeah.
less. They complain less. And they got families to feed, right? So it seems to resonate. I say that tongue in cheek, but you know we really love this demo. And by the way, we're email maestros. That is our
Mhm.
background. Everyone says email is dead. No, it is not. You know, and we love these emails. They open them. It's free for us to reach them, right?
Mhm.
We own that relationship. We can turn it to SMS relationship. So I think the world of email. And I love buying customers and subscribers at 50 cents a
Mhm.
sub versus having to go buy it from Facebook like crack and pay, you know, $1 or $2, right? So that's a good
Mhm.
trade.
Right. Absolutely. Um, I mean, speaking of meal kits, what's your strategy to differentiate from larger players like Good Food or grocery delivery platforms expanding into protein subscriptions?
Yeah, I think like anything, like to zone in on niche, like a niche section within grocery has always been, you know, our strategy. Same thing with golf, like golf. We're not in every sport. We're not like, we're just
Mm-hmm.
choosing these very specific sections and we're mastering them. We're mastering the farmer relationship. We're mastering the way we merchandise, you know, our site. And I will say that, for example, HelloFresh, who most of you know, which
Mm-hmm.
is the global good food, if you will, they in the US have a pilot that does the butcher box thing, i.e., the true local thing. And you know, butcher box is still butcher box, right? Because they know that
Mm-hmm.
stuff way better than. And HelloFresh is a much bigger company, and we track that carefully. And they're making some progress, but they're nowhere near butcher box kind of thing. And if anything, those types of strategics, I think you can equate that to potentially strategic interest in us. And while we aim to build two $100 million verticals,
Mm-hmm.
if someone comes along and says, "Hey, I want to cut you short at 25 million for one of these, like for True Local,"
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be rational business people, right?
Sure. Sure. Yep. Ghassan, what sort of call it new initiative are you the most excited about looking forward?
For all the sexy stuff that everyone's out chasing, I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually going the reverse route. We're all about boring cash flow, tuck-in type acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
We're obsessed with what we just did with Tea to Green. We're really studying exactly what happened here. For us to buy a business, make the money back in 90 days, grow it by 34% organic, grow the overall company's cash flow despite spending $1 million on the acquisition. And we're like, holy shit, like if we can keep repeating this, this is the model, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Boomer commerce. You know, I wasn't joking. Like go buy like old school stuff within golf and grocery. And there's plenty, by the way, there's plenty of that in both
Right.
industries, in food and in golf. And be disciplined with it, roll it up carefully, build up the cash and the cash flow, keep the costs tight, which I'm known to
Mhm.
do. I have a reputation for really, really keeping things tight and lean. Um, and you listen. The other thing I would say is for what we've been through and coming from $32 million of a mountain of debt, coming from five verticals declining like nonstop, no matter what we did, and really sort of going through all of that and sticking it out, hopefully, speaks volumes about the way we view the world, but also the way we view our shareholders and the way we view our responsibility and our fiduciary duty. Um, but make no mistake. I mean, we really see opportunity. That's why we're here. Like we clean this up, and we're ready to get going again.
Perfect. Okay, flip it around a little bit. You're an RC, you're an investor. What do you think makes the most, what's the most important catalyst or metric we should be following on the business?
Um, if I were you guys, I'd be like, okay, I just landed on this thing. It's 6 to 7 quarters in of continuous growth. We just made a really transformative acquisition. We did it very shrewdly. One, I would want to make sure that the operational momentum continues, right? That's like kind of boring, but like I just want to make sure nothing breaks. It wasn't just one quarter, blah blah blah. That's
Mhm.
important for you to look at. I would then say, how are we tackling growth of cash flow generation? Are we, for example, what are we doing with some of this excess cash now? Will we go find another teeth to green? That's exciting. If we go do another
Mhm.
like smart tuck-in, suddenly we're proving that even if I believe we're trading at a huge discount to what we deserve to, if we go do another smart deal like this and gain another million in EBITDA, just to use an example, I think that's a huge catalyst. It shows that this thing's starting to repeat. And on the other end of the spectrum, if we go refi the debt and save 3-4% interest and get a 5-year facility and get an accordion to be able to do other deals, but do so responsibly, I think that's super exciting. So I
Mhm.
think both of those levers are probably front and center in addition to operational execution.
Mhm. Fantastic, Ghassan. We've learned a lot here. Appreciate it. What do you think is a key takeaway? What's an important message everybody should walk away with today about the business?
Right. I mean, emerged commerce today, as you pointed out, is something like a 13 million market cap. Our EVs, at least on the deck was 15, 16, maybe were 9 cents instead of 8, so it doesn't really matter. Uh, Business had 27 million revenue a little while ago. Obviously, we're growing, so you can extrapolate and assume we're headed towards 29, 30, or whatever math you do. But like, if you look at that and you say we're trading at in and around half times revenue, or if you look at the EBITDA of our individual businesses, T2 Green on its own was a million, but we're growing it at 30-40%. You got True Local, which is approaching, a million or so in EBITDA. You got Underpar, which is growing double digits again. And if you add all of that up and you think of the sum of the parts, um, you know, with this run of quote unquote doubling our share price in the last little while, we're still at half times revenue. We're still at half times revenue, and the butcher boxes and the golf nows are, and even look no further than kind of like omni-channel type businesses at scale, like Kits Eye Care, which I'm a fan of. Look at Build Direct, which I see you guys have covered. And those guys were bankrupt at some point, went public, switched to some offline cash flowing. And just look at True Brands. Someone sent me a comment from one of the forums saying like, True Brands had all these brands and they had to sell all of them off, and now they're focused on one thing and it's working and they're growing. And look at where they're trading, whether it's 2 times revenue or something. So I look at all of that and I say, look, we got this down. Like we figured out what we do well. We got two vertical opportunities with great
Mhm.
leadership on each. They're nothing to do with each other, but like they give you that strength. And the one thing they have in common is our know-how and our scars and our depth in e-commerce and digital brands and in data.
Mhm. I love that you mentioned the scars. I think it's so important to have been in the trenches and learned from experience. So congrats on that. We've been speaking with Ghassan Halazon of Emerge Commerce, ECOM on the Venture Exchange. Ghassan, a pleasure to have you on today, and look forward to staying in touch and catching up in the future.
Really appreciate the time, gentlemen, and everyone. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, and bye for now.